of everyone on today. So grounded in 20 plus years of training and personal practice in meditation, Sunada Yuko Takagi, class of 79, offers a down-to-earth approach to mindfulness that is both secular and spiritual. She is trained in contemporary evidence-based methods and is a certified instructor of mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, and also has a professional certified coach, PCC, credential from the International Coach Federation. She is also an ordained Buddhist and practices with the Triratna Buddhist order. Her offerings include Boston area MBSR classes, video conference-based life coaching, and Buddhist retreats and events in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Sunada lives in Boston area with her husband and 2 cats who I saw in the background earlier. So welcome, Sunada, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'm going to take myself off share just so you can see me while I introduce myself. So hello. And I'm seeing all the names scrolling by where you're from. So thank you, from all over the country. Yeah, so hello, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. So today I am here to talk about mindfulness, which is something of a, well, it's getting a lot of press lately. And I wanted to talk today specifically about mindfulness and the role that it can play in reshaping our lives in midlife. And to give you a little bit more of a context about me, so I'd like to say that I do this work not only as my career, but really more importantly because it's very personally relevant and important to me. In the interest of time, I won't go into the details of my background. You can get that from my website. But suffice to say that I got here through a midlife crisis of my own. I used to have a quite conventional looking career and job. I used to work in high tech, in product marketing, but because of a major health crisis, which included not only physical injury, but depression, chronic fatigue, and a whole host of difficult to manage conditions, it's through navigating all that I got to where I am here today. And it was mindfulness that was really instrumental in doing that. So having experienced this personally, what a huge impact mindfulness can have, I do this because I want to share it with as many people as possible. And it's such a simple thing to do, and yet it's so profound. And it's just a shame that more of us don't live with these very simple principles. So that's what I'm here to share with you today. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen so that I can go back to the slideshow. And hopefully this will work. Yes, okay. So this is what I'd like to cover today. So I'll start first of all by talking about the midlife context, what the situation is that many of us are in, and then what does mindfulness have to do with it? What role does it have to play? We will try a short guided meditation, maybe about 5 minutes or so. And then lastly, I'll wrap it up by talking about how meditation and mindfulness can be key to bringing more meaning into your life. Oh, I'm so sorry, my phone rings. I'm going to mute it. Hopefully it doesn't keep doing that. I'm going to ignore that. And of course, I'll have a Q&A at the end. Hopefully we'll have enough time for that. So I'm going to ignore the phone and keep going ahead. Sorry about that. So starting with this midlife context that I referred to. So does this sound like you? So in your 20s, this was me, certainly, I defined personal satisfaction to mean a good career, having financial stability, having a nice family, a network of good friends, being part of a good community. You know, that to me was my definition of what a good life might look like. And being Smithies, of course, you know, you probably aspired to make an impact. I certainly did, to make an impact in the world. You are probably ambitious, willing to work pretty hard to achieve your dreams. And maybe now, a few decades later, you've maybe achieved most of these things, if not all. And so the question comes up now, did you get what you wanted? Are you satisfied? Really? Really? So, when I meet many women who are in a similar situation as myself, and I assume as many of you are, these are the kinds of questions that I keep hearing over and over from them. Nagging questions. So how can I be a stronger and better person so that I can be grounded with all the demands on me? Like a full-time job, like family issues, maybe my own health issues, probably aging parents, right? You know, there's a lot of people counting on you, right? Second question, how can I take better care of myself? You know, I end up being last in my list of priorities. And yet, I feel like I need to do something that allows me to grow in ways that feed my spirit. And then lastly, just concern about the state of the world that we're in, right? What can I do in a world that seems to be filled with so much chaos and aggression and divisiveness and just people not really seeming to be able to even listen to each other? And it's very concerning. What can I do? So these questions, I keep hearing over and over from women who have, let's say, reached a certain age. So what's happening here? Well, those definitions of success that you might have had in your 20s, well, they were externally driven. They were things that we could actually see happening in our lives. Whereas as we get older, something begins to shift and we begin to think in terms of internally driven measures, right? Things that are more valuable, that are about me inside. We're starting to see a deeper part of ourselves that we just can't ignore. Our values, a need to feel like an authentic person and that I'm not living as one person at home and then a different person at work, for example. A need to live with more integrity, to feel like I'm really being the person that I am. So yeah, it's now becoming about internal stuff, isn't it? Not just outer manifestations of success. And then another thing that I see happening is that there's a yearning to feel like I'm doing something that has some meaning to me, that I'm not just living from paycheck to paycheck or running through my to-do list all day long, but actually doing something that feels meaningful to me. So what does mindfulness have to do with these questions? Well, here I offer you a quote from Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is really the grandfather of this contemporary mindfulness movement that's blossoming now. And his definition of mindfulness is that it's the awareness that arises when we pay attention on purpose in the present moment without judgment. Okay, so it's the awareness that arises. Notice it's not I try and be aware. It's spontaneously arising, right? It happens naturally when we're paying attention and doing it consciously on purpose, knowing that I'm paying attention. In the present moment means, well, basically knowing what's happening in terms of 5 senses. What's coming in? What am I seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching? That's present moment. Also noticing what thoughts are coming up for me right now. That's all stuff that's happening now. And then without judgment. So that's the difficult part. That means paying attention without adding all sorts of stories and interpretations on top of what's going on. So for example, if something ends up going wrong, do we fall into self-criticism? Do we go into catastrophizing? Do we get all anxious about it, right? These are all things that we add on top of the basic stuff that's going on in the moment. The old woulda, coulda, shoulda, the perfectionism, all those things are judgments. And so the question is not so much to get rid of judgment, I don't know that that's possible, but to recognize them as for what they are, that they're just thoughts. And they may not necessarily be reality, that we may be skewing, our perception of things may be skewed. So mindfulness is calling for us to really just pay attention to what's really going on right now, as it is. Perhaps we may not like it necessarily, but the more clearly we can see what's going on, the better we're going to be able to respond to it appropriately. So mindfulness is really just simple awareness. There's nothing fancy going on here. It's something we all know how to do. Babies are born with it. I mean, even animals know how to be mindful. It's a basic capacity that all living beings are able to do. And yet, with our complicated 21st century lives, we're so busy trying to keep up with stuff to do that we just lose touch with that. And we forget to be in the moment. So what I'm basically saying here is that even though mindfulness is something really simple, the sorry fact of the matter is that we don't live that way. There was a research study done at Harvard not long ago where they attempted to come up with some real statistics of what percentage of the time people spend actually being present with what they're doing. And they found that people spend 47% of their time thinking about things other than what they're doing now, right? So what that means is we spend almost half of our lives on autopilot, skating along on habit, multitasking, or just plain being distracted, or just not paying attention, like we're off somewhere else, thinking about something else. So that's half your time. You're not there. And that's the norm. That's the way most people seem to live on average. And it really begs the question, who's driving the bus? Half of your life, you're not there. Scary thought if you really think about it. So what do you think might happen if we paid more attention? To really stop and pause and notice really what's going on for you right now. So mindfulness is a way of creating that mental pause, which, even if it only lasts 1 second, it gives us enough space, mentally and physically maybe even, to bring in a little bit more self-awareness, like, oh, wow, I'm really riled up, I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed, right? That's good information to know. That's self-awareness. And even just taking that one breath, it triggers your parasympathetic system that helps you to calm down just enough to bring in a little bit more groundedness, just a little bit more connection to reality, right? That's what mindfulness does for us. And if we do this repeatedly, it helps us to begin to see through our habits, our impulses, all the unquestioned beliefs that we live with, right? All these things that we use to just skate along on life without really being there. It helps us to reconnect with what we're actually experiencing in the moment. And as I say in this last bullet, it helps us to rely more on our better angels, if you will, to let that part of us come to the fore so that we're able to find our own source of wiser self-guidance. And so what this leads to is that it begins to change our relationship with the world, because our perceptions and choices are more grounded in reality rather than the emotionally laden, say, catastrophizing or anxiety or overwhelm that we may be living with, as an example, right? We can't change what's happening, obviously, but we can change how we relate to it. And that's where we can begin to change whether we're getting stressed out about something or not, whether we're overwhelmed by something. So rather than getting caught up in the heat of the moment, we're able to bring more of the whole of ourselves to our whole situation. So body sensations, intuitions, right? Gut feelings, better connected to our values, what's important to me right now, all those kinds of things become more accessible to us just by taking that brief pause to reconnect with our own being in the moment. So I think there's a popular misconception of meditation and mindfulness that it's a nice way to escape and go into a feel-good place where we can rest up so that we can go back out and conquer the world and go back out into the struggle. But actually, that's not quite accurate. It's not about just going to a nice place to escape to, but really connecting to a better relationship with ourselves, paradoxically. When we are better connected with our own experience and what's actually going on for us right now, it actually improves our relationship with everything around us as well, our whole world, our relationship, the people around us, our communities, because we're connected. So really what mindfulness is doing for us is that it's strengthening our roots. And I brought in this analogy, this image of the tree, just to illustrate that, if we think of ourselves as like trees, any tree that has deeper roots is healthier. It's going to be able to grow taller. It's going to be able to reach its branches out wider. And this is essentially what mindfulness is doing for us. So it's helping us to be more grounded when we're being buffeted by challenges and stressful situations because we're better rooted, right? We'll be able to stand taller with more confidence because we know that we're anchored, that we're not going to get blown around. Our branches can reach out further. We can reach out to other people more easily and safely, if you will, because we're rooted. So, isn't that a good metaphor for what we all are looking for and what we would all aspire to have in our lives? So this is the kind of thing that mindfulness can do for us. So what do you think? Maybe it's time to try a guided meditation. You can try that out. So I'm going to take myself off of screen share, and pardon me, I have my cat is jumping up on my desk, and I'm going to get rid of her first, and then I will come back to my own face on the screen instead of the slides, so that we can try a guided meditation. And I think this will be about 5 minutes or so. It'll be a pretty brief one. And you don't need to get into any special position, or you don't need to sit cross-legged on the floor or anything. You can just stay right where you are in your chair at your desk in front of your computer is just fine. And let's start actually with our eyes open. And just look around, or not around, look just straight in front of you and notice what visual things are appearing in front of your eyes. And, oh, here comes my cat. I'm sorry. Here, go away, please. So you can imagine that your eyes are like camera lenses. And camera lenses don't go out and seek visual images. They just take in whatever is in front of them, just receive visual images. So if you imagine your eyes are like camera lenses. So without exerting a whole lot of effort, just notice what's in front of your eyes. Colors, shapes, details. And we can do the same thing with our ears. So let's notice what sounds are landing on your ears. Again, using the camera lens analogy, extending it at least, and allowing sounds to just land on your ears. And now let's turn inward. Let's close your eyes and just turn inward, and using your internal sense of touch. It's called interoception, our ability to notice body sensations with our own body. And just feel your body sitting in your chair or whatever it is that you're on. And you may notice this sense of firmness of whatever it is that you're sitting on. And so notice, what exactly does that feel like to have your rear end seated on a chair or a cushion? What does that actual sensation feel like? And notice too the sensation of your feet on the floor, to have them resting on the floor. And you can allow the fullness of your body weight to be given over to the chair, so you don't need to hold yourself up. The chair will support you just fine, so you can trust that it will take care of you. And as we sit here, you may begin to notice that you're breathing. So how do you know that you're breathing? What is the actual physical sensation in this moment that tells you that you're breathing? There's undoubtedly parts of your body that are moving, like your belly, expanding and contracting. Maybe you can feel your chest expanding and contracting, or your shoulders rising and falling. Or maybe not. Those are just possibilities. Maybe you can even feel a little bit of the brush of clothing on your skin as your body expands and contracts, and you're feeling how the clothing on your back shifts ever so slightly with each breath. Just feeling those sensations. All these details that are there all the time, and yet we don't even notice them. It's so simple. And we're just being present with ourselves. Just enjoying each breath as it comes in and goes out. All we need to do. And when your mind races away to your to-do list or all the things you got to do the rest of the day, well, that's okay. It happens. Minds are meant to do that, you know. We don't need to get all upset with ourselves, no self-blame. It's kind of like training a puppy, actually. You know, puppies wander away. That's what they do. And minds also wander away. That's what they do. And it would be silly to get upset at a puppy. That would make no sense. It also makes no sense to get upset at our minds for thinking. And so anytime you notice that you've wandered away, you just gently bring yourself back. Come back to the sound of my voice, or come back to your breath. And you can very gently but firmly tell yourself, stay. Just like you're training an adorable little puppy. Being very gentle, very kind. So let's just enjoy being here with our breath for a few moments. Okay, so let's begin to bring this meditation to a close. And we do this very gently too. So in whatever way that feels right to you, beginning to introduce some movements back into your body. If you were just sitting completely still, maybe taking a deeper breath. Opening your eyes whenever you feel ready. There's nothing forced, nothing hurried. Seeing if we can carry this sense of quietude back out as we reopen our eyes and rejoin this world out here. So briefly, if you would be interested in giving us some comments in the chat box, maybe you could type in a few words to tell us what you're noticing about your experience now. What are you feeling in your body? How does it feel? what's going on for you? Sarah says she feels rested. That's great. I feel more calm and relaxed. I think I fell asleep, says Jacqueline. That's okay. You feel refreshed. That's good. You know, if you fell asleep, maybe it's just your body's telling you you need more rest. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Anyone else have anything they'd like to tell us? I'm feeling tired but calm. So maybe you were tired all along but didn't notice. That's a possibility. I feel relaxed. I feel peaceful, was able to forget the to-do list for a little while. That's great. I feel centered and relaxed. Interesting, like my head is and was tingly. Lots of energy, happy and ready for the day. I felt my breath for the first time in a long time, calm and relaxed. Well, sounds great. Yeah, and that was only about 5 minutes, really. Mind wandered to a bunch of different things. Mind is a puppy, but it felt good to come back. Yeah. So it sounds like you're all in a good place, and that's fabulous. Just want to say that it's great to be in this calm and more relaxed and peaceful sort of a place. And I also want to say, though, that that's not necessarily the end goal here. It's great to feel relaxed and calm, but actually the point of doing this mindfulness is so that we can create that mental space, that pause, so that we can actually notice what's going on for real, what's going on inside us. So if you're in the middle of a panicky, anxious moment and it's feeling really hard to relax, that doesn't mean you failed. It actually means you're noticing that you're feeling panicky and anxious and whatever. And that's a good thing, right? To be able to really understand what you're feeling right now. Yeah. Oh, Nancy says, I do this with yoga 3 times a week. I'm but okay with that. Wondered why I was thinking about those things. Yeah. So you're noticing that you're thinking. And that's self-awareness too. So we're not trying to empty out the mind. We're not trying to get to some blank place. This is about self-awareness, remember. So just noticing for real what's going on with us is the point of what we're doing. Whether or not you feel peaceful and relaxed actually is beside the point. So I'm going to move on and go back to sharing my screen. Oh, no, I want this one here. Let's go back. Okay. Oh, by the way, if you're interested, if you go to my website, I have a short 3.5-minute guided audio that you're welcome to download, which is similar to what I just led you through, and I'll give you the URL for my website at the end of this presentation. So I'd like to go back to those 3 nagging questions that I raised at the beginning of this presentation. Those questions that seem to come up so often for those of us in midlife. And let's talk about, so what does mindfulness have to do with those questions? So that first question, how can I be a stronger, better person to stay grounded with all the demands on me? Well, maybe based on this brief experience you just had, maybe you're getting a sense of how that might be connected. There have been a lot of studies recently about the health effects of meditation and mindfulness. And among them are studies that are showing that people who practice mindfulness have greater resilience, meaning, the ability to cope better with difficult situations, to be able to stay grounded when something's feeling challenging or difficult, and to also be able to bounce back from adversity. Oh, I need to advance my slide. Sorry about that. Yeah, mindfulness building resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity. Yeah, mindfulness helps us cope with difficult emotions without feeling so overwhelmed, because it's helping us to stay grounded, right? And not letting our emotions and our wild thinking to run away from us. I'm sure we've all had this experience from time to time where we are able to actually pause and pause in the middle of some difficult situation and resist our impulsive, emotional, knee-jerk sort of reaction that we might be having. Just this really simple ability to take a breath and collect yourself before doing something that you might regret later, right? I think we've all done this. And when we do this repeatedly, it's actually changing the structure of your brain, because any habit that we do over and over again, it weakens the neural pathways of our old habitual patterns and builds new pathways toward the more positive habits that we're wanting to build. So we all have this ability. This is not anything brand new to you, but the more we do this mindfully, the more it strengthens that very natural capacity that we all have. Okay, that second nagging question: how can I better care for myself and grow in ways that feed my spirit? I know I hear this often from women to say, focusing on myself just feels so selfish. And I'm going to argue with you that it is not at all selfish. And in fact, it's one of the most selfless things that you could do, or maybe the best thing you can do that will allow you to reach out to others. Self-care, number one here, means knowing how to care for myself, i.e., getting enough rest and sleep, for example, so that I have the strength and good spirits to really be able to reach out to others without being crabby. So the better shape we're in, the more we're going to have to offer other people. Number two, self-knowledge and agency actually frees up energy. If you're really aware of your own values and strengths, you're able to make choices based on what's important, meaningful, and energizing to you. And isn't that, doesn't that feel much easier than struggling to do something that feels like you have to do this? So that's what I mean by freeing up energy. And also this ability to make my own choices, not based on internalized expectations that I've taken on because of all these things like my gender, my family conditioning, right? All these things that we've taken on, assuming that this is what I should be doing, when actually it's just something we've acquired from somebody else. What if we are able to really know what I need to do in this moment? That also helps to free up energy. And then feeding your spirit. So when we're able to do all these things and we really begin to acknowledge our own strengths, then we naturally begin to use those strengths to really contribute to the good of others, even if it's just taking care of our family in a more loving way. But isn't that what we want? Isn't that what we're looking for, to feed our spirit? So as you can see, self-focus is not selfish at all. In so many ways, it's about those roots that I showed you earlier in that tree, that it's helping us to be grounded so that we can actually reach out to others without depleting ourselves. So that third nagging question, what can I do in a world filled with so much chaos, aggression, and divisiveness? So, of course, I'm commenting on the state of our country right now, and the state of the world, not just our country, but it feels so difficult right now for everybody. And so many of us feel like, oh, what can I do? You know, it feels so huge and so overwhelming. And yet I also hear from many of you, I don't have the time or the energy to get involved. You know, I don't have the spare time to go and volunteer and get into calling and writing to my congressperson or all these other things that I feel like I should be doing. And then getting into the guilt and the self-blame and feeling like I'm just not doing enough, you know. And whoa, let's stop there. You know, we don't need to go there. Because it's not what you do, but how you do it. And what I found this really helpful framework for looking at this down at the bottom of the screen here. It's from a woman named Marie Goodwin from a nonprofit organization called Transition US. And she spelled out the 4 different levels of activism, which I found really interesting and insightful. And you can see that these are concentric circles that reach further and further out into the world, starting with yourself in the middle, right? So, of course, self is what I've already talked about. Self-care, making sure that you're healthy and you're rested so that you are able to reach out, right? The next layer out is your immediate family and close friends and closest circle of people in your social world. And so, you know, we want to be involved and take care of them and care and love them, right? And then 3 and 4, levels 3 and 4 are more typically what we think of as activism. So number 3 is our immediate community, our geographical area, our city, our state. But, you know, this would be activism here would mean volunteering. You get the idea. And then number 4, world tribe, would be issues maybe that go beyond our immediate local geography, where we're getting involved in more issues on a bigger scale, maybe getting involved in things related to climate change or national politics, international issues. So, you know, things that go beyond our immediate communities where we live. So as I said, you can see that these are concentric circles that reach further and further out into the world. I think many of us think that being an activist means doing all 4 of these things and then just feeling completely overwhelmed and unable to keep up because it's just way too much. And what Marie Goodwin said was, and I completely agree with her, that it's only possible to really do a good job at most 2 of these things at a time. So if you have a busy career and a stressful full-time job and you've got a family, you know, you may not just have the energy to do all of these things. And so I wanted to focus on levels 1 and 2, that it's perfectly acceptable and very appropriate to be an activist that just focuses on numbers 1 and 2. Because being an activist at level 1 is not only about taking care of yourself, but as you mindfully get to know yourself better and live up to your own ideals, then you are becoming a living example of the kind of person and a representative of the kind of life and world that you want to live in. I'm sure we all know people who have inspired us, not necessarily because of their heroism, but because of their generosity, their kindness, their ability to just connect with people. And aren't those the people that really impact us most? And what if we all were able to go out there and be that kind of a person? It would have a huge effect on the world, right? So this is what I mean by being an activist at the level of myself. Level 2, being an activist here, being there for your family and close friends. Well, just as an example here, I would say that raising a strong family and having strong, capable, honest children can be a huge act of activism, right? I think of so many of the young people today who are really impressively going out there and doing things and getting involved, and you know that they have strong parents behind them, encouraging them and standing behind them. And that too is a level of activism, a way of activism. So let's stop thinking in terms of trying to do everything and trying to change the world single-handedly, when that is a surefire way to burn out and overwhelm and total despair, because no one person can do that. So let's stop. Let's just reframe it. Really take a realistic view of your own situation and think of, how can I be a great team member of this human race? How can I serve those nearest and dearest to me? How can I exemplify and live the values that are most important to me? And by the way, I don't want to discourage anyone from doing levels 3 and 4. If they're capable of doing that, more power to you. I'm speaking right now more to those of us who feel like we can't, and I don't want you to feel bad if you can't. So I want to leave you with this last quote from Howard Zinn. He says, "We don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents. And to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a marvelous victory." So, in closing, I would like to offer to anyone who's wishing to go a little more deeply into these issues personally, I offer a couple of services that may be of interest to you. If you're in the immediate Boston area, I offer classes in mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is an intensive 8-week course on learning how to meditate and how to bring mindfulness, integrate mindfulness into your life in a natural way, that it just becomes a natural way of your being in the world. And my second service is life coaching. So this is something I do either by phone or video conference, so you don't have to be in the Boston area. Anywhere in the world, actually, is just fine. And with this service, I offer individual coaching to work with individuals who want to delve into these aspects of your inner life in the interest of becoming a stronger person who feels capable to make a contribution to the world. So with that, I think I will end my presentation to make sure that I have enough time for any questions. I'm going to stop my screen share. Stop share. Okay, here we go. So we have 7 minutes left, but I don't know, Lindsay, if it's okay if we run over. I am available beyond 1 o'clock my time if people want to stick around. But please go ahead and type any questions or comments you may have into the chat box, and I will be happy to address any questions or just talk with you.
And this is Lindsay, and yes, we do have the ability to go over. So if there's questions,
Yeah.
and that we can keep going. So
Okay,
thank you so much for wonderful. I just love listening to your voice as well. You're so calming.
Oh, but thank you.
That the puppy analogy really hit me. I think it's so important.
Julia says, I recently completed an 8-week MBSR class and I highly recommend it. Thank you. Yeah, it is a really, it can have quite an impact to take that course.
See if there's anything more that comes in here. I just wanted to thank you again and thank everyone who has joined us today. We had nearly 50 Smithies from across. Oh, here's a great question.
Here's a question. As we begin incorporating this into our daily work and life, do you suggest stopping whenever we realize we're not present and doing a short pause like the exercise you showed us? Oh, yes, exactly. I'm sorry, I forgot to say that. You don't have to do 3.5 minutes of meditation. Right? Thank you, Robin, for this big omission on my part. Yes, just taking one mindful breath in the middle of a panicky moment can actually work wonders. So, yeah, just taking one breath and, just getting in touch with your body and realizing that, maybe I'm tense and whatever is going on, just getting a little bit grounded. Yeah, so that can be hugely helpful in keeping us from flying off the handle. So yeah, definitely. So Barbara says, would you further explain the connection between meditation and mindfulness? During our brief meditation, I focused on external cues rather than internal. Should I be focused on internal stuff? So there's no should here in meditation or mindfulness. It's just noticing what's going on and making a conscious choice as to where you're placing your attention. So it could be a focus on external cues, because I did point you toward visual or oral stimulation. So yes, that's fine. Or you could choose to focus on a feeling sensation in your chest if you're, or feeling tightness in your neck or whatever. So more the point is that you are choosing where you focus your attention. There's no should. And you asked the connection between meditation and mindfulness. So for me, that the difference between the two is that meditation is a formal practice where we set aside time to do the kind of practice that I led you through, whereas mindfulness is more about carrying that sort of awareness out into our life, having the wherewithal to take that mindful breath in the middle of your workday, for example. So that's the connection between the two. Elizabeth says, appreciate the 4 levels on one of the last slides and your discussion of focusing on 2. Yeah. So you don't have to be Superwoman and try to do all 4 because it's just not possible. So let's stop. And Deborah says, do you think mindfulness can help if you don't know how or where you can make a meaningful contribution? The what to do aspect. Well, of course, yes. We all have to start somewhere. Yeah. And mindfulness is a great place to start, because the more you begin to get to know yourself and understand what makes you happy or not happy, or even something as simple as, gee, what makes me feel, what's pleasant for me, what's unpleasant for me, just starting there and practicing in that way, it starts to take us deeper within, where we start to see, well, okay, so these are things that are meaningful to me. You might feel like, oh, it's pleasant for me to spend time with my children. Okay, so then that leads to, wow, my family is really important to me, and spending quality time with them is more important than I realized, and I need to create more space for that. So yeah. So if you don't know what your meaningful contribution might be, that's okay. Wherever you are now, mindfulness can help you to start building in that direction. Nancy says, it seems this is applicable to all the ages, not just midlife. What is special about it for midlife? You're absolutely right. It's applicable to all ages. I just happen to tailor my message for people in midlife, just to make it more targeted, but you're absolutely right. I mean, this could work for stressed out teens, high schoolers who are feeling pressured, right? Yeah, it could work for anybody of any age. So you're absolutely right. Naomi says, I'm a yoga teacher and a firefighter, and I find that mindfulness is equally helpful and equally possible in both or all circumstances. I'm glad you're offering others a skill that helps us to be more present in the now, because we all face burning buildings, whether literally or in our minds. So true. It's so true. Jackie says, what role can meditation play in helping someone overcome chronic illness? I've tried meditation and also yoga, but I'm dealing with chronic Lyme disease, and like you, know what it's like to have your life completely disrupted by illness. I also have done other health-related treatments too and have a good doctor, but feel like just being able to reconnect on a mindful level is important for people with health issues and also dealing with issues in midlife. Yes. As someone who deals with many chronic issues myself, mindfulness has been absolutely instrumental in helping me to live well, despite having issues that medical science is never going to be able to correct. I have scoliosis, for example. My spine is crooked, and as a result of that, I always have knots and tension and pain that's never going to be corrected. But with mindfulness, I've been able to more acutely, that's a bad word, have a more refined and sensitive sense of how I sit, for example, so that I don't trigger pain, or knowing that I need to get up and stretch and walk in a certain way after a certain amount of time so that I don't make it worse, right? So it's helped me not only in terms of things like that to manage myself physically, but also not to spin off into the catastrophizing that I talked about earlier, and seeing that I do have other possibilities beyond being completely devastated by a physical condition, right? So mindfulness is definitely something that can play a huge role in for someone who has a chronic illness. Elizabeth says, any advice on using mindfulness to move through and beyond a situation of feeling stuck, or any specific resources? That's a big question. Yeah. The thing with being stuck somewhere is that we tend to want to fix it quickly because we don't like it and we're uncomfortable. And so we start jumping to things that we think will fix it. And we end up in a little bit of it can potentially get us in a hamster wheel of trying to fix and fix and fix. And in some ways creating more stress for ourselves. And one of the ways that mindfulness can help in a situation like that is to pause and notice how I'm feeling, recognize that I may be uncomfortable or, in pain or whatever, or depressed or what have you. Like that meditation I did. So what is my experience of feeling depressed? And where's my mind going with it? Really getting to know my present situation, getting a realistic view of the lay of the land. And it sounds counterintuitive to say, stop trying to fix it. But what happens as you gradually take the time to really understand your situation, what can begin to happen is that we start to shift our perspective so that we're not so narrowly focused on fixing my problem, but when we take a bigger perspective and other possibilities begin to open up for us. So I can't say exactly what those possibilities might be, but when we allow that space and the patience for something else to more creatively arise, that's how we can begin to find, the little opening that helps us to move on from a difficult and stuck situation. And that's precisely the kind of situation that I was in myself with my midlife crisis that I referred to earlier. Robin says, I've just retired from a busy and stressful medical career and find that I'm anxious about not contributing. This helps me reposition myself. Yes. You have so much more worth than just what you do for work, because you are a human being with so many relationships and people who care about you and that you care about them. And putting more of our energy and focus there can be obviously a very meaningful way to live as you go into your later years. Naomi says, I teach yoga and mindfulness to very young children and teens in a psychiatric hospital. I know it's a bit off our midlife topic, but I wonder if you have any quick tips for reaching that population. Doesn't feel like a quick tips sort of a situation. But I would say that the one thing I can say in this limited format and time is it's always helpful for anyone in any situation to take that pause, to take that breath, and step out of that hamster wheel of whatever it is that I'm getting caught up in the moment, and re-ground yourself, re-anchor yourself. And for most of us, even young children, that reconnecting with that anchor, that proverbial anchor, helps them to reconnect with what is it that I'm really wanting here, right? And really being able to turn toward what's wholesome and positive rather than scrambling and struggling. So I would say that's the short answer that I can give you for that. So it looks like we've reached the end of the chat box. And it is 6 after the hour, so maybe we should hold it there. But I am happy to, if you would like to email me or contact me for anything, please feel free. I am happy to engage with you all out there. So please feel free to contact me if you have any further questions or if I can be of any help to you.
Right.
So thank you very much for your kind attention. And yeah, Robin says, can we have a link? My website link and all, I believe Lindsay will be sending you my slides. But for now, I'll just tell you that my website is www.mindfulpurpose.com. That's all one word, mindfulpurpose.com. That's my website, and please feel free to contact me. Nancy says, shouldn't give up on your scoliosis. I have the same and found relief after 50 years through a practitioner and also yoga. Yes, I haven't given up. I will keep going.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sanada. And I will be sending out your slides so everyone will have those resources. And thank you. I see Sarah just posted it in the chat
yes,
box.
thank you, Sarah.
And you can expect to see the recording. I will share the link for that as well. So thank you all for joining us today, and stay connected. Keep coming to the webinars, and our website, alumni.smith.edu, has a calendar of all of the events and programs going on, and especially the clubs in your area. So thank you all for our participating today, and a special thank you to Sanada for this great webinar.
Thank you all.
Have a good,
wonderful day.
wonderful day.
Bye-bye.